Okay, so before we go any further, I actually just want to introduce you to the React Developer Tools Chrome plugin that you can use. Now, I didn't want to introduce you to this too early on because you're learning an awful lot as you go. However, I think this is probably a good time to introduce you to this kind of debugging tool that is available to you. So I've put a link to this down in the description underneath. But what I want you to do is to go ahead and just add this to Chrome. I mean, you'll see that I've already got it installed, so my button says remove from Chrome, but you go ahead and just install this as you would any other any other plugin. So what I like to do once it's actually installed is go into my plugins bar here and make sure that wherever you have saved it to, that you pin it to your extensions bar. And I'll show you why in a second. And you'll notice that you've got this little React logo here up on your bar. Now, it doesn't really do anything. If you click on it, it doesn't look like it does much. If you click on it, it just says here, this page doesn't appear to be using React. But if we go ahead and make sure that you've got your React application started, and we head over to our React app, you'll see that this is slightly different now. And if we click on it, it'll say, this page is using the development build of React. Oh, brilliant. Well, we know that we're not in our production environment. We are in our development environment. Additionally, if I go, say, to Strava, which is where I put all of my running and cycling, we'll notice that they are using the production build of React. Well, that's really handy. We can see if our website is using React. Okay, that's not all it does. Don't worry, it's a lot more powerful than that. So I'm just on one of my pages here, and I'm just going to right-click and inspect. And what you'll notice is, depending on how your screen is laid out, we now have two extra tabs in our inspect window in our Devtools. So the one that I want us to look at now, we'll not look at Profiler for a while, but for now, I just want us to have a look at our components. Now, what's really cool about this is, if you remember in our elements, it will tell us all of our HTML elements that are kind of being rendered to the browser, which is brilliant for troubleshooting individual kind of lines of code and individual HTML elements. However, that's not very handy when we're trying to troubleshoot whole components. So what we can do here is it's actually got all of the different components that are being rendered by React. So remember, we've got our navigation, we've got then our location, which is kind of as part of our browser router. And inside our nav, we've got all of our links. You know, we're using those link components. We've got our routes, and then we've got kind of our rendered route. And I'm currently in pizza detail, which has links and stuff in it as well. So it's got a list of all of the kind of React components that we're using that we can then kind of troubleshoot from a slightly higher level than our HTML troubleshooting, or our listing out our HTML elements in our DOM tree. What's really handy here is that if we click on one of these components, it then actually tells us, well, are we passing any props to our components? So if we look at our location provider here, you can see that we're kind of, these props are being passed down to that component. Let's actually have a look at a slightly better one. Cool, so our rendered route, you can see that we've got kind of, we're sending this ID of the pizza that we're currently looking at down as props to this component here. So it's just a really good way of being able to kind of see where data is being passed to in your output application, in your rendered application. Also telling us where the source is. This isn't really relevant just yet because we're kind of in development mode. But it's saying what's, you know, what that particular, let's go to our pizza detail here. Where's it being rendered? Well, it's being rendered in our app.js. This could be, this link here is being rendered from our app.js and then inside our pizza detail here. It's also telling us what hooks we're using and stuff like that. So it's a really good way of getting that slightly higher level of troubleshooting and being able to kind of chase data around your app and seeing what's been rendered by what. So go ahead and use this. It's something that I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail with unless we're actually troubleshooting. But it's a really good thing to kind of get used to using to see where data is heading in your app and where things are being rendered from.